I want to throw this tweet up there for you, JB, because I get the notifications, of course, when you throw something out there, and I'm like, whoa, where's this coming from? So you wrote yesterday, just to be clear, the Braves have no interest or plans to trade Ronald Acuña Jr., nor will they even consider offers for him, according to multiple GMs who have inquired after some various media reports. So just to take the second portion of that tweet, JB, there have been phone calls where a GM actually thinks he's going to figure out a way to talk Alex Anthopoulos into a trade this season.
Yeah, I think when you have some respected media members come out and they go on MLB Network TV and they say there's a possibility Acuna gets moved, I think some people watch that, listen to it, and go, we better make sure we check our homework to make sure. But just as clear as could be, and I've confirmed this with the Atlanta Braves too, there's zero chance that they trade Ronald Acuna Jr. or even converse about the trades. And so I just want to put it to bed because there seemed to be some momentum on that because of some media reports, and I just wanted to make sure that we snuffed it out as quick as possible.
If they traded Ronald Acuna Jr. this season, they might burn the battery down. Like, when was it, the Civil War, when they burned Atlanta? Whoever that was that burned down Atlanta, right? Like, that would be what would happen to the battery. The fans would go crazy. He's on such a team friendly deal. Why? He's the one guy in the lineup, and him and Olsen, that are hitting. Why would you get rid of him? I mean,
why would you ever?
The fact that whoever brought this up, I'm not going to mention no names. They're crazy because this ain't happening.
Yeah, agreed. That's why I wanted to put it to bed.
Well, JB, let's continue while we're on Atlanta. They are looking very likely to be not involved in the playoff race this year. The tricky part with them is that most of these guys are on long-term deals, and maybe that's why people are making things up, trying to come up with franchise players that are signed up for still a while and seeing if there will be offers for them. Are they going to be one of the most boring sellers at the trade deadline? Yeah. It's like maybe they try and get someone to take on Ozuna if he's feeling okay. What is it, the shoulder that's been bothering him, or the hip? The hip.
It's the hip, yeah. So right now we have 8 teams that are selling as of this minute at the deadline. Atlanta is one of them, with Washington, Miami, Pittsburgh, Colorado, Baltimore, the White Sox, and the Athletics. They're the only 8 teams right now that aren't within reach that will listen to certain players. Now with Atlanta, they're not going to do a rebuild. They're not even going to do a reboot. But that being said, you mentioned Marcell Ozuna with the hip, still has some power. We still have some teams that need a little bit of offense to their lineup. And I think there's no doubt that if Alex has the right deal for Ozuna, he will move on from him. I've also heard that there's a couple of teams, in particular, San Diego and Tampa Bay, that would like to pry Sean Murphy from them, knowing they have Drake Baldwin as their long-term catcher there. So I think there's a possibility that they could go. But if Atlanta does anything, it will probably be Ozuna, Murphy, or something small. But all the rumors about Acuna and Albies and Riley and some of these other bizarre, Chris Sale name I've heard as well, I'm not getting that impression from the Atlanta Braves at all. So I think it's small tweaking at the very most at the deadline for Atlanta.
Okay, I have to ask this. As a former GM and a former person that was in charge of a team, what would you do with Michael Harris? What do you do with Michael Harris? Because he's still playing a Gold Glove center field, but right now, if you look at his numbers, he's the worst hitter in the major leagues over the last 2 months. What do you do with a Michael Harris if you're the Braves?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would do is try to see how we can reach him and try to get the potential out of him. If I felt like my hitting room didn't feel that there was a pathway for that, if my hitting room felt like there's not adjustments that could be made to make this work, then I would call Dana Brown, who is the one that drafted him with Atlanta, who's the GM down there in Houston, and I would see if there was a deal where he would have interest in getting him. He has always been his biggest supporter, and I would see what kind of value I could get, and I would check the marketplace. But I think my first priority would be talk to as many hitting people as I possibly could and see if anyone had ideas or solutions to try to get him back on track. Because I was in Dana Brown's camp on Michael Harris. I thought he was going to hit. I thought he used the whole field. I thought he would make adjustments. And for 3 years, we haven't seen that. So I guess my answer to you is, 1, I would try to fix him. Number 2, I would see what the marketplace says for him. And if not, I'm still okay with an elite center fielder hitting the bottom of my lineup.
You had mentioned Sean Murphy. How hard is it for a GM at this time of year to trade for a starting catcher? And I know teams are going with that like 2 catcher split kind of thing, but Sean Murphy's not getting traded unless he's a starting catcher, unless I'm completely wrong. how hard is it? Because you rarely see it, and you're adding a guy to a playoff team that needs their pitching staff to do well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the team. The two teams I just mentioned that are looking for catching, the Padres and the Rays. I mean, he would be a significant pickup, I think, for either team in handling their pitching and be a plus on both of those teams. Obviously, if you're going to trade for a 30-year-old experienced catcher with the track record he has, the prospect price to get him, you're going to have to overpay to do it. And Atlanta's not in a position where they have to move him, because if they end up trading Marcell Ozuna, they can use Murphy and Baldwin, one at catcher and one at DH. So it's not like they don't have a perfect spot there. And if they have an injury, they're kind of protected there. So they have to really win a trade to do that. But in terms of a contending team getting a catcher mid-season, it has happened before, and I think it really depends on the catcher, and it depends on what you have right now. And it's nothing against Danny Jansen or Martin Maldonado, but Murphy would be an upgrade.
Can we classify the Orioles trade deadline as a fire sale, or is it going to be kind of meh? And what is the most intriguing pieces that they're pushing out there?
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, I'm going to say it's meh, which is really disappointing. But I think the president and GM Mike Elias, his job is on the line. I think he's going to be really careful. Now, he's going to concentrate on adding pitching. That's what he wants to do. He's not going to break this team down. When you see the rumors about Adley Rutschman's name, it's like Ronald Acuña Jr. He's not talking about Adley Rutschman. Even though Sam Basallo is coming, his plan is for both of them, one to catch and the other to DH or play first base. So that's not happening. What I'm hearing with the Orioles is they're going to be concerned more about the players that are free agents at the end of the year. So Ryan O'Hearn, a good bat that some teams need, the contending teams need. Cedric Mullins, a center fielder. Couple of relievers like Gregory Soto and Sir Anthony Dominguez are all free agents. Some of them needs a right-handed bat if they have interest in Ramon Laureano. Charlie Morton, who is a free agent and might retire after this season. I think it's going to be that group of 6 players that are moved. I don't think it's going to be the sexy Felix Bautista. If Zach Eflin gets healthy, it could be him because he's a free agent. But I don't get the impression that the Orioles are ready to wheel and deal and make that kind of impact. Although I will say this, they made one small deal today, and I really like the deal for them. Even though Bryan Baker is a really good middle reliever, he throws 96, 97 with that ridiculously good changeup that he's got, and it's going to help Tampa. They got the 37th pick in this year's draft from Tampa Bay. Just think about 2 years ago, Tigers did with the 37th pick. They got shortstop Kevin McGonigal, who will be in the futures game, is hitting like 350 and has a chance to win a batting title someday, and that was pick 37. So to get pick 37 for Bryan Baker, Mike Elias did a good job today, I thought.
Yeah, I want to dive into that. So bring us all on for a sec, because this is something that we have heavily criticized the Orioles for. And I'm with you, JB, good trade. But does anyone love a good pick and a prospect quite like Mike Elias? We've been hyping that up for years. And it's like, dude, I mean, this guy's got 3 years left of control. Clearly, in my mind, JB, they're looking at the indicators and whatever they have behind the scenes and saying, this is probably peak Bryan Baker. So let's trade him right now. Because, if we thought he was going to be the next high leverage superstar in our bullpen, we would hold on to him, because you would think that they're competing next year. So I'm with you. I mean, they got themselves in basically an end of first round pick, but I'm like, what's the direction here? That's just getting a nice return for now for teams that need bullpen pieces. Aren't they competing in 2026?
We'll see if they compete in 26. Let's see what they do in the offseason. Let's see if they go get some starting pitching in the offseason and can get a more competitive pitching staff. But I mean, if you're Mike Elias, you just mentioned it. What's his strength? His biggest strength, whether he was in Houston or in Baltimore, is the amateur draft. That's what he does extremely well. He hasn't proven what he can do in building a major league roster, but he has proven that he can pick the right guys. And a pick 37 for a setup reliever that's not going to be a closer and really isn't an 8th or 9th inning guy, that makes a lot of sense when you're about to go in the draft. And when you look at this draft right now, there's 50 good names. You can hit big with second. We've seen Cy Young Award winners come out of the second round, right? At this range of picks. So, I kind of think it's a no-brainer. Whether he was buying or selling, I think it's a no-brainer. For Tampa, it tells you that they're all in right now. They know they can make the playoffs at the very least as a wild card team, and they're trying to get those extra pieces as this team is being sold. So it's very interesting that Eric Neander would push those chips in for a reliever. I was kind of surprised.
Jim, where do you draw the line, though? You mentioned Elias is great in the draft, but has he developed guys great? I mean, Adley, Jackson Holiday, Gunnar. Yes, they're all in the big leagues. Some of them, but they're all kind of, not as great, I don't think, as we thought they would be, right? And their pitching definitely hasn't developed the way we thought. So what's the fine line as a GM or president of baseball ops of being great at the draft or being a great talent developer or being a great at putting a team together? Is there different strengths that every GM has? And then do you hire people to help you with the other things that you might not be as great at?
AJ, you're 100% right. That's what it is. We know Mike Elias' strengths. He doesn't have to know and do everything, but he has to make sure he hires the right people under him to do the things that he's not capable of doing. You look at any Hall of Fame general manager, John Schultz and Pat Gillick, Theo Epstein, who will eventually be a Hall of Famer, Brian Sabian. Let's just pick those four guys because they all won world championships and they're all superstars in what they did. They surrounded themselves with the best people to get that done. I mean, the fact that the Orioles have failed in developing players at both the minor league and major league level, that has to do with the people that Mike Elias and the Orioles have hired. That's on them. When they made that managerial change earlier in the season with Brandon Hyde, I thought they were going to go outside the organization and bring in some experienced, successful managers and coaches that would help get this group better. And that's not what they did. They just promoted from within. So there really wasn't much of a change. And to your point, you guys asked about Michael Harris earlier. Adley Rutschman should be a star. He should be developing at a better rate. We are seeing progress with Jackson Holiday this year. We got to give them credit for him as well. But is Kerstad being developed properly? Is Kauser? I mean, I question whether or not they've hired the right people to maximize the picks that they've made, and the results have answered that as no.
Hey, let's do a little player spotlight thanks to Arena Club. AJ, give me a player this season that you think is underrated and you might want to try and grab his card.
James Wood. I don't know that he's underrated, but Washington Nationals superstar in the making, and the first slab pack I ever opened had him in it. His rookie card, and the value is only going to go up and up and up. And I'm not going to sell it quite yet, Scott. I'm going to hold on to it because after he continues to hit big homers and put up the stats, make all-star teams, it's going to get more expensive for someone to buy for me.
This is his first full season in the majors. Keep that in mind. I think he's underrated. He's on a Nationals team that's meh. Not getting enough attention. He might hit underrated 40 homers.
When he makes the all-star team this year, they're not going to be underrated.
That helps. He's been intentionally walked 4 times in a game. Anyway, if you want to try and find a Wood rookie card, go check out slab packs on Arena Club. And right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack, or if you just want to go with a card purchase, go to arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL. If you buy, sell, trade, collect, go for it.
The last time you came on, you just landed from the plane and you hadn't read what Rob Manfred had come out and said. What do you think of the comments that he had from, I think it was about last week or a week and a half ago?
Yeah, I mean, look, look, in his particular position as the commissioner of baseball, he's listening to all the small and middle market owners that are complaining that the Marlins spend $80 million a year and the Dodgers spend $400 million a year. And how are we supposed to compete when they're putting down $320 million more a year than us? And they're right. And I think that the commissioner looks at the NBA and the NHL and the NFL. They all have a salary cap. And I think he looks at Major League Baseball, and it would be great for Major League Baseball and for him and for the 30 teams, or not 30, but most of them, if there was a way that you could have teams, in the same range. That being said, if you're the union, why would you want a salary cap? Why do I want to stop how much the Dodgers and Mets are going to spend? And I think to me, again, this is my own personal opinion, is I've always believed that the television revenue should be equally shared with all 30 teams, because even if you're in a big market and you have your own network, you still are televising against the Marlins and the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Athletics. It's the same game. One team gets paid a lot more money for that television game than the other does, but it's still both sides are playing in the game. I'd like to see those revenues shared, and I'd like to see a salary floor. If you're going to have revenue sharing, then your major league payroll has to be, let's just say it's 150. And then in terms of a cap, I don't like the hard cap because I want the owners, if Steve Cohen wants to overpay Soto $765 million, I don't want to stop Juan Soto from getting paid on the open market, but I want a penalty. Let's just say you had a soft cap at 350, and you can spend whatever you want, but anything over 350, you're going to pay 100% tax, and it's going to be split between the 29 teams, not just the low market teams, but the other 29 teams, you're going to pay 100% tax. There's a way of doing it that works. Bottom line is, how much revenue are the players going to get? Are they getting 50%? Are they getting 48%? Are they getting 60%? That needs to be negotiated. But I do think we need to get a better system. And I think both sides need to work together to do that. I don't like the fact that there's a lot of people taking sides behind people's backs. I'd rather have everyone do it right up front, have the players just as involved as the owners to try to find a solution that everybody likes. I also think the minimum salary should be $1 million for every single player. If you get to the big leagues and you're that good, your minimum salary today should be $1 million.
That's pretty close, Jim. It's pretty close. But there's a couple things in what you said. One, salary cap in the other leagues doesn't necessarily work because you look at certain teams, and if you're taking the union side, the basketball players have to give money back in hockey because their guaranteed contracts are in escrow, right? They're not fully guaranteed. It depends on revenues and this and that. And then the other thing you said about, what's it supposed to be, the revenue sharing 50-50. Well, leagues are trying that like the NFL. And then they have lockouts because they say, oh, well, we're not really getting 50%. We're only getting 48%. And it fluctuates and this and that. So I get both sides of it. I do. But to me, there is no perfect system. And for baseball, if owners would just spend because they have money, it would work. But they don't want to spend because they're like the Pittsburgh Pirates. We use them as an example all the time. But here's the thing. Bob Nutting gets a check every year for like $75 million. He puts that right in his pocket and says, oh, I'm using it to develop Pirate City and this, and I'm doing this in the minor leagues. Nobody ever sees those real gains for I guess some players do, but you don't see gains in the big league. It has to go, there should be somewhere it has to go to the big league team in payroll. But again, then they're going to want a cap. So there's just too much to break down here.
Yeah, AJ, but I do think that, again, this is just my own personal opinion. I do believe we need to get a floor. And I do believe if you're getting revenue sharing, it shouldn't go into your operation. It should go into the major league payroll on the major league team. That is my belief. And then if you knew you had to spend 150 million on payroll, then there's going to be some, players that are going to get paid more just because the teams at the bottom have to spend their money, and that's going to help a bigger group instead of just the stars. So I've never believed that we should do the revenue sharing that we do without that money going to the big league payroll. I understand the argument of, hey, I'd rather spend the money in development and scouting. If I'm the Marlins, I get that argument right now. They're trying to rebuild the technology, the analytics, the science. They're trying to copy the Rays. And by the way, Peter Bendix is doing a good job of doing that right. And I get why he wants to invest it there. But if you're going to ask the teams to share, the fans want to see the major league product. That's what they want. And it's great to say, well, yeah, but 4 years from now, these guys will get there. But still, I just think it's unfair to have that much money being shared and then a team not spending it like Pittsburgh, like Miami. I don't think that's good for the game.
Totally on the same page with you, JB. And what I feel like happens sometimes is that teams are becoming more and more like a real estate deal, which is fine. That's a way for them to make money around the ballpark and even with the facilities they have. So it's like, cool, I got revenue sharing. I'm going to spend 10 million of that this year on boosting certain facilities. What does that do? That improves the franchise valuation of your team. You can also win a World Series and improve the franchise valuation of your team. But I just think there are some owners that are so short-sighted that they're like, I know this is a lock. I might not win, but I know this is a lock. This is going to help my cause. Here's my question for you, because we seem to be on the same page with most of this. The big push from Rob Manfred is trying to crack the union and say, hey, guys, you've cost yourselves billions of dollars. I keep pushing the percentage up of how much money I'm taking from the pot. So you should listen to me now and let's do a salary cap, and this will solve all of the problems. We have a soft salary cap. The union can say whatever they want about it. There is significant penalties for teams that spend over a certain amount of money. On the fairness scale, we don't have that right now on the other side. So I agree with you. Revenue sharing money has to be spent on player payroll. Period. Player payroll. That's a huge part of the problem that's been going on. I think everybody can agree on that. But number two, another way to force that is why do we have this soft, but not this on the bottom like that? Why do we not have a certain line that says, hey, 150 mil, and if you don't, it's not like the all end all, but you get punished for that. You lose picks, or we can come up with a variety of ways that teams get in trouble for that, or they have to give money back, stuff like that. I know it's never going to happen, and this is part of the whole problem of the sport, but I think the main issue that people are having in baseball is that the bottom feeders or the low revenue teams are pocketing the money and they're not spending it, and we're not forcing them to do it. And the owners are never going to agree to anything like that unless we go the other way and start to punish the big market teams.
Yeah, I'm just going to verbally repost everything you just said. I agree with absolutely everything you just said. And I also just want to add the fact that, labor negotiations are serious things, and you have to give Commissioner Rob Manfred and the teams a lot of credit, because the players dominated. When Donald Fear was there and years after him, players dominated that and did a really good job. The last three labor agreements, it went the other way, and the clubs have been kind of dominating there. And I think we all need to take a deep breath and kind of look at it and say, shouldn't we be doing a deal that's best for everybody, for the clubs, for the players, for the cities, for the teams, and try to balance it out? If we really care about the game, that's where our concentration has to be. We have a huge problem when you're sitting there for the last 10 years and the 15 teams with the smallest markets in baseball have never won a World Series. 10 years. That's what we're going on right now. That doesn't mean, there aren't wild card teams. That doesn't mean market 12 to 14 can't win, but we haven't had a world championship in that bottom 15. And to me, we can argue expanded playoffs has helped, and if you get in, you can run the table. I agree with it. We saw it 2 years ago when the Rangers beat Arizona. I love it. That being said, we still have to do something to address the teams at the bottom. We have to find a way to bring their payrolls up.